So then, we are back with the more understandings from the Renewed Covenant from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of Israel from the time of the prophets of Yahweh. And Yahweh is the true Creator, giving us then the understanding of the time of the end. As we understand, we are during the time of restoration, and the importance of understanding then the importance of the building of the holy city. From many cities, and these cities are then the very action of the Messiah when he said, "Go therefore around the world and form holy cities." The Messiah, when he said those words, he was making a reference to the tabernacles. These days where then people, they have the perception of then the Messiah being outside of the holy tabernacles. The Messiah was in fact speaking of the tabernacle of the desert, the city of God, then later became the city of Jerusalem, then the city of God, because the tabernacle was simply moved from the desert onto the promised land, later became the temple. And then the Messiah obviously wanted his people to be involved with the holy city, but then rather than Yahweh being in the Holy of Holies, the Son would be in the Holy of Holies. Go therefore and make holy cities around the world, or then holy tabernacles. That's why he said then later he would never leave his people nor forsake them, because they would be involved with the services of the tabernacles. Much later then, the pagans, they perverted the understanding of the Messiah. They made it up a Messiah outside of the holy tabernacles, and it makes no sense. Then they made their own pockets of their own religion, where then the time of the deceit was then evident. Because Shaliach Shaul said at the end they would concoct for themselves teachers with itching ears, teaching doctrines of demons. Because they teach a Messiah outside of the holy tabernacles. In 2 Corinthians 11:4 you find Shaliach Shaul speaking, "But if any person comes to you and proclaims to you another Messiah, another gospel, another Savior, then they, the set apart, have always taught. Then be sure of it, then you have the false Messiah." So then gives us the importance of understanding then Yeshayahu 1:8. The prophecy of the holy city in the land of fears. Land of fears is Africa. Land of Cush, beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So a city of God then constructed in the land of Cush. The first city from the cities laid waste is spoken of by Yeshayahu, the 61st chapter. So then you begin to understand what it means later when Satan the destroyer then comes out of the pit and then comes against the holy cities and the beloved city. So then we begin to understand in 1009 when the Muslims destroyed then the holy city and the tomb, the world made a declaration, then they did not want the Messiah any longer. Thus then the pit. This wasn't a long time ago. Then in the future we find then when the atomic blast then is activated, then you find Satan the destroyer coming out of the pit. By this time the holy cities are in place. Then Satan the destroyer has a purpose, destroying then the holy cities, as he did during the time of Yohanan until 1009. When his people then, you find in Revelation the 20th chapter, were in charge. They were given then 1,000 years. Later then, after the destruction of the tomb and the holy city, Satan then the deceiver had taken over. His facet of destroyer went to prison, and he deceived until 2009. 2009 has ended, then we are then during the time of reduction, because 2031 is the maximum time given then to the Gentiles, because the Messiah spent 2 days with Samaritans, indicating a layer of understanding of the Gentile ruling. However, heaven's ruling was then practiced for 1,000 years. The other 1,000 years was absolutely deceit. Then we are returning to the truth. So then he spent time with the Samaritans per Yahweh's calendar in 5031. If you then use 2,000 years later, 7031. So we already are then in the 7,000. You have to give a slack, because the reason you find then the time of transition. The cities are then the reference point. You find the transitional time from the first service and the second service 100 years. Then when the holy cities are in place, then you begin to understand the motion of the completion of the prophecies. Then it started making more sense. So then when the cities return, then the counting of then the prophecies completion then are very evident. That's why then he found a place where then the land of the fears, the first holy city, then returning as per then the time of Yohanan. And then many cities coming later. And these cities are the spiritual stabilization of the planet. While then the secular rulership of Gentiles mixed with the religion, what they thought was then heaven, is then absolutely separated forever. So then we begin to understand our quest of making sure the holy city then is built, and then the other cities must be also built, so then the prophecy of Yeshayahu comes to its completion. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.